I can't believe it. We're already on to.
Really January.
Yeah, it's January.
Middle of January already.
Does anybody recall when we started this this series on hormones?
I remember we started in October.
November, October.
Started in October. Yeah, it's been October since we started.
Yes. So now we're live on now. So today's Chi-Chin's birthday. So I saw that earlier you are unboxing your gift. So why don't you show us?
That my sister not coming, just waiting.
Okay. Just waiting.
waiting.
So-
I'm gonna call her.
Okay. So how do you
And
feel
we-
today?
That's the way we are just family meeting. Two sisters here. That means always class Sunday about 30 people. Nobody come in class free. Nobody come here learning. That's complete. That's make me not tired.
Yeah, so we need Thecla. We need some ideas on how to start charging people to attend these courses so they'll actually attend.
Hard to say.
Yeah, I didn't spend too much time paying attention to what's his name, Grazioso. But maybe I should have spent. Yeah, maybe I should have spent more time paying attention. I could have started, getting better attendance by charging. Can you believe that? If it's free, nobody attends, but if it costs money, they do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, if you pay money, then you want to get your money's worth.
Yeah, you got to get your money's worth.
Yeah, it's part of the like a gym.
I want to get my knowledge worth.
That's right. It's part of like being in a gym. You gotta, if you buy a membership to the gym, you're gonna go. If you don't buy a membership to the gym, you're not gonna go.
Yeah. I bought a membership to the gym. I'm not going. Yes, guys. David and Ji-Ching and me are on the computer again.
Your computer is what?
I'm telling the dogs you're on the computer again.
Oh, okay.
Because I
Hey,
guess
you're
they
not
hear
the
your,
only one
they
who's
hear
got
your
a demand.
voice and they come over here and they want to know where you're at.
Yeah, my boss was telling me that her dog just kept moving the computer out of the way for her so that she could spend more time with him rather than with the computer.
That's very possible. It's probably what they're trying to do too.
But see, being here in Thailand, of course, at 10 o'clock in the morning is when Washington, D.C. opens up. So to talk to the State Department, you got to be up at, start work at 10 p.m. And that's when the dog needs to go for a walk. Yeah, right before bedtime. Yeah. So we had a little bit of rain the other day, which was really, really unusual. We haven't had rain since the beginning of November. And so we had about 5 minutes of a little bit of a drizzle. And
Wow.
according to the weather forecast, we're supposed to get some more rain on Sunday. Tomorrow is Sunday, right? Yes. Okay.
Wow.
So that's kind of neat. And so I've been putting together this list of all the USANA products that we need to restock on. Is it going to be if I send you a list, Thecla, and money, can you purchase some USANA for me and send it off to me and tell me how much the shipping is going to be?
Yeah.
That would be so cool. Because there's, amongst the products that we can't get here, there's stuff that I really like Percosa.
Yep. I can do that. No problem.
Okay, I really appreciate it. That would be really quite helpful. So
I've got so many sauna boxes. They're really good. They're really good to use them.
now Mila has some lessons learned about what not to write on the package. So we don't have to pay a bunch of fees, because because we have to make the packages small enough so that they don't look like they're commercial. And two is just that we don't put anything on the label that says nutrition or nutritional products or drugs or, you know,
So I
anything.
guess, so I guess maybe I shouldn't put it in a Usana box then.
生日礼物啊，你看吗？
啊，
今天
什么礼物啊？谁的生日啊？
我的呀，看看写的啥，你念一下。
看不清楚，叫莫妮。
So David, do you want to stop sharing screen so we can see it bigger?
郭楚妮，
Oh, sure. Stop sharing screen.
人们，
你生日知信那个知信是那个知信了，因为每次给我知信给我知信
让你翻译给带过来一下，
啊，
你念一下。
那知信生日快乐甜心，我是陈，对吗？为了我每日聪明充满爱心的妻子，
然后呢，一个蛋糕，
蛋糕。
然后他叫米娜他翻译一下。
Okay, fine.
Only 4 candles.
Yeah, so what David just write, let me see.
甜心。
Okay.
对，
So, 知晴 happy birthday, sweetheart. 寿成绿 寿 means like have a long extended life. 祝成绿 like wish you luck and also fortune, right? 为了我美丽、聪明、充满爱心的妻子。It's for my beautiful, smart, passionate, with a loving, kind wife. Happy birthday.
Let me check now. What's the inside?
这不还没吧？还产品的质感这些
美国的这是美国的生日。一，
哦，
She
What is it?
reaches into that pocket and finds
哇
it.
，money. Where's the Thai money?
How many are there?
Shopping.
How many? 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, 10,000.
No, nine.
啊
Nine.
9,000,
这
10,000.
个我们给它分过来。
12,000, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000. Wow, my birthday name 就是就是
发红包，
15000是吧？
我的
啊，
对
是吧？
50
是不是15000？
见面红包，
你是15吗？不就15000吗？
对，15000这个
泰币才多少钱呢？人民币好大。
15000，你来算一下，也就是人民币多少钱？算一下，这算一下美金给带过来。
这7万块钱吧，应该。
你那再算，多少钱？15000这个bus 就是 Thai money。
Yeah, so it's about 2820，就是2800块人民币。
2800，让这个美金呢？
452 $452 US dollar.
哦，lot of money，这都$500。You see, this American dollar, lot of money 哈，大哥。
那还是人民币，给人民币花了钱了。
Just over the American dollar, then we can buy the 1 year food 啊。
One
你
year
赚
food.
的，你赚的还是给赚美金少些。
才3000人民币，2800是吧？
Mhm.
嗯。哎，是，哎
She didn't read the
也
card. She just pulled the money out.
哦，No， 哦，yeah。
一天的工资啊。
还有次就是给你的一个，请假装它是一个参考信封。这个还有次，再念一下。
我真的很爱你，我全心全意的 David。二
这
你念，
个
你往上一点，那边。
错了。
OK，阿姨你念。
就是我给你一些泰国钱，请假装它是一个参考信封，上面歪过来，歪
OK，
过来，
turn over, David.
Oh, this way?
错
the other
错
way.
错。我真的很爱你，我全心全意的爱你 ，David。OK。David 最棒的。
So this translation over is I really love you with all my heart, David.
Okay. That's a little hard. there. Okay.
这是的，
And
这是
then-
的，
And
好
then
漂
this,
亮啊，
就是给你的
越来越好看了，
this is
越来
a
越漂亮，杨哥越来越漂亮了。
so this is give you some Thai baht change. 请假装它是一个参考。So wish you pretend this is a money envelope. Is that what
actually what it is Mila, is that please pretend that this is a red envelope.
you didn't say red, you say envelope.
那是叫做 wife list， 有 shopping list。
Yeah, shopping list.
下次你得go buy for coffee here。OK，
他的货了，那货了么了？货了很
叫我
久是不是？
叫我给他买菜做饭。
Okay.
那给我sit here， 那给我看了。
那边做饭什么饭呢？没声音，没声音，没声音。
是买。
So all of that being said, it again is Jishi's passport birthday.
Passport birthday。
Passport
not
birthday.
Chinese birthday。
Not Chinese birthday. This is passport
Chinese
birthday.
birthday what day？
We don't know yet.
Every year 你得翻的。
Every year it's a
It's a-
game. We have to
it's a
find out
元宵节
when
怎
the
么说？
Chinese
元宵
birthday
节。
is. Is a
元宵节怎么说啊？
the
元
key
宵节，
she was born on
元旦，你要说元旦。
就是米娜元宵节怎么说？这个音乐
Lantern Festival.
manifestival every year 你得翻的。
Yeah, so the Lantern Festival is the 15th day of the Chinese New Year.
Oh.
So when she was
Okay.
assigned her passport, they had to give her a date for the birthday. And so 15th day of the new year is 15 January. So that is her passport birthday assigned by the US government when she emigrated into the United States.
Yeah, every year I need to play game and find out my birthday, Chinese birthday what day. That hard job.
Yeah. That's actually not a hard job. I just have to look at when the first day of the Chinese New Year is, and then I can figure out what the 15th day is. But all of that said and done, it's not for another month and a half.
But
So
every year regular, not different time,
yeah,
not summer time.
every year.
Year's different, huh?
Now, Mila, on the other hand, has a birth certificate that actually lists her birth date. So by the time Mila was born, they didn't go by the Chinese New Year calendar so much as actually assigned dates. So that has a fixed date. Nevertheless, here we are. We are on the 7th week of hormones, or happy hormones, since we started going from relationships into hormones. So we did start in October. It's hard to believe that it's been that long that we've been running down this. And last week we talked about the thymus, and this week we're talking about, anybody remember?
The adrenals.
The adrenals. Thank you, Thecla. You got it. All right. All right.
I'm curious to see, learn some more stuff. And I met a new client who has been diagnosed with Addison's.
Addison's? Ah, okay.
So, yeah, I I invited her to join us tonight, so I don't know if she'll come or not, but
Okay, well, we're gonna get started. It is
Oops.
going to be recorded, so we're going to go forward and do that. I really do appreciate you all being here. I think having family here really adds to a lot to motivation, energy, enthusiasm, and gets us a lot closer together. As we're talking, USANA is not an easy business.
Not easy. My baby sad. I told anybody no listen here. Nobody listen here.
Yeah. So with all of that, we have to remember all the lessons that we teach that are taught is that it is very difficult. And when you're talking about multi-leveling, you're between 2 and 1 person every 100 person you talk to. So the more people you talk to, it is a game as to how many no's can you get. We have to collect a bunch of no's. Remember, lots of people have to say they're not interested or they're, but the worst ones are the ones that don't say they're not interested. They're the ones that you think are interested but really aren't. But they never say.
quite a few of those.
Yeah, got a lot of those. And you spend a lot of time wasting on people that waste your time. And, then you have to remember why you're in the business to start with. And I remember that each time is not to make money, but to educate people. Yes, I got mine too, right here. And of course, today's presentation, I'll take my morning USANAs. And if you want to know about products, we can talk about products. We're going to start. We are actually. Yeah, we got the orange shake this morning. So we have.
Wonderful.
So we have.
This one, college.
So this is orange juice, collagen, energy drink, and vitamin C.
Together.
And it really tastes great. I don't know that I've ever made a USANA drink that didn't taste drinkable. And then it goes from drinkable on up to really delicious. So, and most of the time we get very delicious out of it. And that really helps from the standpoint of getting your nutrition. Okay. And, oh, by the way, I took a sick day last week. Okay. I'm admitting I did take a sick day last week. I picked up a sore throat and a cough on a Tuesday night, and I blitzed myself with C Booster and Proflavina and Procosa and Proglucomin. Okay, and then I took a sick day because one, I was still coughing in the next morning, and one of the things about going to the office is they don't want people going to the office that have coughs or sniffles or sneezes and that sort of thing. Yeah. And so I adhered to the policy of our office, and then our office sent over a quick kit for Corona, and noticed that I had been exposed the day before by somebody who did have it, which made me my 8th documented exposure, and said, okay, we got to take the test. So I took the test and it was negative. And the next day I felt just fine with all of the USANA products. So here we are, folks. One more documented case.
Going on a ride.
Enhanced immunity. And so here, healthy again and shiny faced and, right in front of you with all the energy that I can muster as a 64-year-old man doing what he loves to do. And that is work with people, talk about USANA, talk about the passion of health and health improvement, and do it in a country that's different than the one I was born in, so that I can explore and experience the world before the time that the Lord does take me.
那你现在没放那个 Facebook 没放到那个 YouTube 上吧？现在我们在吃东西。
我已经开始了。
那你这个东西不要放上去，我们在说生活中的话。
Yeah. Okay. So what she's chewing on is a purple yam or a.
已经录制了，你别吃了。 今天是你的生日，所以我们都已
So
经
what is
录
it? Fruit?
Yeah.
没事，弄一点那个生活化，跟那个伊莎娜，你不要天天弄那个伊莎娜，人家不想听。看他的生活片的话，人家看起来就熟悉人家。
Catch us up. What's going on? All right. So those are yams from Indonesia and here in South Asia. So and they're purple, and they make great ice cream, by the way, out of this.
Is it really?
Yeah, it makes really tasty ice cream,
Yeah, ice cream, huh?
and it's a purple ice cream too. All right, so let's get started. Oh, that's cute, Mila.
That's
That
cute.
really is kind of cute, Mila. I kind of like that.
That's anybody picture. Who is that?
That's the guest that hasn't arrived yet.
Hang on, don't change it yet.
That's yeah. Take a picture, Thecla, and share it around because that's really kind of cool.
不行，我的眼睛这么强，没睁开，我也戴个眼镜好吧？
It's our family album.
Family album.
我戴个眼镜的，好看着哈。
Okay. No, don't disappear. Tell Auntie to come back. She needs to sit and put her face in front of in there. Jishan, where'd you go?
She goes kind of gases.
She needs
Yeah,
glasses.
Mike's on the phone. Hey, Mike. I'm good. You good?
Someone needed to sit on the bottom to watch us.
It's on right now.
Tell Mike we're waiting on him.
Yeah, normal number. David says they're waiting on you.
In this one.
Okay, dokie.
What about this?
Just on the way home.
Oh, get more.
Family theaters.
哎，怎么还没回来呀？
哎呀，没那么快，我来找。
不
Yeah,
用紧，你
they're,
那个
they're
只
always
是戴
on
个罩，不
whether
需要眼镜
anybody
儿，
says anything or not.
Yeah, you missed his class.
不要那个不要眼镜儿，就是坐
我
着
戴眼镜，我的眼睛呢，要比他高高，眼睛会睁开不好看。
没事没事。
我眼睛每次是，
Mm-hmm.
All right. We need to get your pretty face in the middle here.
是不是？这个好看点，是不是？啊，漂亮吧？
All right.
Yeah,
The
sounds all
family.
good. You can be here.
Huh?
you can be here.
All right.
啊，
So we're gonna go get
Okay.
started, and maybe we'll take another photo opportunity unless Thecla can get her phone up again. There we go. We got pictures now, Thecla.
Okay.
对，就这样搞好看一点。
Everybody smile.
Everybody smile.
我在这样，
All righty. Don't put the
Don't
bottle down.
别挡着脸呐，别挡着脸呐。
Bottle
这
down.
是
Get
这是那
the,
个
Are
就
you
是
done?
不要挡着脸呐。
不要挡住脸啊！
yeah.
这怎么照片怎么看的？
不用了，不用那个，就是脸照上脸就好了，不用那个什么东西了，
啊，行，
你做好就行了。
All right, I think I got
Family
it.
time.
You got that, Thecla? Okay. We need to get started, or we're not going to get finished.
就笑就行了。
啊，行，耶，
Mike's going to be joining us in a little bit.
John.
So,
Yeah.
do you want us to keep chatting until he gets here, or do you want to go ahead and get
你
started?
看我们
Thecla?
的两个
发点这了，弄几
Let's
张
go
好照
ahead,
片，
let's go ahead and
然
get
后发给
started.
Okay.
然后我再等一下，我拿那个产品，然后拿个产品的，然后你再贴着这个，你给我照好了再发给
这个
我。
仓库很小，不用那个产品了。
Okay. So, what's the product we're
不
talking
是
about?，
你叫他，我让他弄了给我发给我，像这个，我在搞，我在弄抖音里面，然后发几张好的照片。
你就放好嘛，你放好就给他
Let
拍。
Mila interpret so that Thecla
我就
understands.
我在放，他怎么放好看？这要不把我的脸不罩住。
啊，现在可以了，现在可以了。
All right,
Yeah, ma.
Thecla, Mila, catch us up. What are we talking about? What product?
啊，现在可以照明了。
我把那个字，
Okay, are you 我翻译一下。So, Xiang just mentioned she'll try to take a photo with the products together. And mom saying
Well,
no
sign of
because
advertising.
it will cover her face. So
No,
Hey,
don't
you
cover the
see-
face. Can't cover
你
the
现在
face.
我那
But we can all pick up a
我刚配
bottle.
成每个产品配的话，就是啥好，就是给我把那个产品给我配上去，把那个产品把那个我这头再搞那个营养素，两个营养素还有维 C， 我从那配了，然后这个我再搞再配这个的，再配这个营养素的两个
Well, I
营养
can't hold
素，
a product and the phone at the same time.
这两瓶是营养素
And
的。
hold the bottle on the phone at the same time. I don't know if Mila can
我
take
我
a
我搞那个正面儿，
photo.
Well, they're so small
然后再这样的。
that you really can't see what the products are.
Yeah. Okay.
那个
good,
我现在
good.
那个我现在中国还没
I
得，
don't- It might not matter.
Not
这
really.
对
Oh, there you
哦
go.
，now together 了。
对对，哎，再这样搞的，这样的，
现在这个了，you can get a title too。
对，看这个的，
You can't hold the phone and take a
这个的
picture.
拍满的啦，
Mila, can you take a photo of
把
the
这个
a
把这
still
个
of
这两
the
瓶营养素，
screen, take a screenshot?
yeah.
配好了吧？
Why don't you take a
Okay.
screenshot? That way
这
Tekla
个来给
can
了
have
吗
it.？
对对，
Yeah。
然后配好了的，把这照片的都发给我，还有我
Okay,
好了，
everybody, play
Hello,
photo
ma'am.
time. 1, 2, 3. Here we
Hey.
go.
啊，我在
All right.
我在拿你
So
那
we
个 VC 的，
Okay.
Okay.
Super
还在
job.
拍子吗？
Okay. It is time to
Then
get
you-
started with our.
你再换个造型，再换个造型。
就那个就可以了，不用拍了。
啊行，然后行，好，等一下，我再拿个那个现在的新产的那个，
Mhm.
Okay. All right, back to normal.
Mm. All right.
That's cute,
go ahead,
Mila, I
let's-
have to admit.
So Mila, do you want me to have the screen up on my side or do you want to control it?
这两个配的好的这个大豆粉固体饮料，还有这个袋装的，这些也是固体饮料的那个纤维粉。然后我还是把这个配起来，感觉人精神一点，好看一点。
也是吗？
这样，你来配给我
One
给我配
more
好看。
picture.
我现在，
Okay, one
然
more.
后
All right. You want to do it for Kosi?
然后这两个是对着一起喝的，然后我会发那个在那个抖音里面，他现在搞的那个叫什么直播，会用这个也用这个，我再慢慢再发，有人关注多了嘛。
Okay. One more picture for Jishang for her advertising.
对，纤维粉就是纤维，就大豆固体饮料的。
Oops. This one too hot.
You can hold it for
你
Kosi.
你
Oh
看不
my
到图片，
gosh. For the
Come on,
Addams
here.
family.
There you go. Adam's family.
这是也拿产品吗？
I
这
look
是也
so
拿产
funny.
品。
I mean, I look like a ghost.
Wow, that's special.
你看我放在这个大金矿这里，
The trouble is that
Going
you're
on.
looking at
把你放大镜框吗？还是换一个？
这个金矿换个金矿，换到你的那边。
That's so weird.
你们那个金光换小，二姨那个金光太小了。
That was
我这个金
just,
矿太小了，看不见我。
Uncle Fester.
Yeah,
左边的那个大的，
it's weird. Look at that. I can pull
Okay,
out
are we
my
going to take a
skin.
picture or are we not going to take a picture? Let's get this
Oh,
thing going.
picture.
I think I can accept manually. Okay, let me choose just different one. The right is the 4. Okay.
My sister so smart window.
Oh,
Okay, back to
I
the
think
right.
I got it. I think I got it.
对，这是每个照片都有我们几个人嘛。然后
Okay, Thekla, we need a product there.
你把
Thekla.
脸都挡住了。
没事的，这个脸等我要看产品了，脸不管它那么
Whoops,
多
where
了
is。it?
There you go. That's
Yeah.
good.
把那个二姨
换那么多
给他换了，他那个小窗口太小了。
All right. Here you go, Mila.
Yeah,
Right-
no, it's
right
hard to
in front of
find
your
where we're
tampon.
at.
There you go. Right there. That's perfect. Okay.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Boom.
对，
Okay.
然后你像这样的，你都可以到时候得发给我，我可以慢慢在
在
那个
车里面的感觉啊，像在轿车里面。
啊，
Okay.
对呀，这现在说你要创一下新的，不创新不行，不创新这个别人 你看那个直播里面好多人就这样做的。
Can you
他这个
get-
我今天早上在那个抖音里面，他们看了现在叫什么东西啊？他会连说放那个照片儿，我可以你像这样，你放照片，你每一个你单独的发，你不要说什么别的，单独的发给我，我保存了，然后我在里面发，这都是我的照片嘛，哎呀，照片我发了。
We can talk products later.
就是现在开始了，米娜把客人开始了。他说就说聊天晚一点。
好的，我们稍后再探讨细节。现在我们开始。So David, over you now. We're ready to learn about what you have to tell us today.
All right. So let's just double check to make sure everybody can see the shared screen.
Yep.
你把这个 YouTube 先从现在开始，
已经开始了。
你把那个关掉，把它关掉，
不要
不要了
说。，妈咪，你不用说了，已经开始了。
Does
Okay.
everybody can see okay?
Yes.
All right, super. Well, welcome everybody to Hormone Happiness and the Endocrine System. This is part 7, the Adrenal Glands, and I'm your HealthEagle. And that means I have to push the button. All right, so where we've been and
现在
where
要
we're
创
going
新，不创新不行。
is
Okay,
that
I'm
we
gonna
have
mute
had,
everybody and then back to you, David.
okay. So we've got we've been through relationships and nutrition and great relationships, women's health, men's health, and the endocrine system orientation. And your endocrine system has to do with your hormones and the generation of hormones. And hormones, as we will learn here, is a chemical flow that comes through your bloodstream when you want to have long-term and prolonged instructions to your body. We've been through the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, the thyroid and parathyroid glands, the pineal, the thymus, and today we are on the adrenals. All right. Okay, and the reason why we're doing this is to live happy, healthy lives more fully, and to be able to one, help ourselves, and then be able to help others by recognizing deficiencies in health that might be able to be benefited by improved nutrition. Again, the endocrine system is made up of glands and hormones that they secrete. The endocrine glands produce hormones, and then they control the brain, the heart, the lungs, the liver, skin, the thymus, and all of these other activities. And they also receive signals and then release additional hormones. Now, right now in your body, you probably have about 50 different hormones working together to have you healthy, happy, and in your seat right now, you have about 150 total hormones that operate in your body, and you can benefit or to be harmed by these hormones if they get out of balance. And a hormone is a chemical transmitter. It's released in small amounts from your glands. All right, it is transported in your bloodstream. It has target organs, and it also targets cells. And hormones send chemical messages, okay, not electrical messages as in your nervous system, not immunity signals as would be in your lipid system, but chemicals that then cause other chemicals to be created. Okay. Your hormones, they need to have receptors and to get into your system. It's you have a number of hormone of glands that do this. We started out with the hypothalamus because that is the connection between the nervous system and your endocrine system. And we learned last week that the thymus is the connection between your endocrine system and your immune system or your lipid system. In here, there's a link here in blue and that will give you a reference that you can call up to do research on individual glands and hormones, to be able to, because this is a reference document, you can go bring it up on your computer and it will give you a really quick list of A to Z on hormones and glands. All right, we're going to talk about the adrenals today. The adrenals sit atop of your kidneys, and you can see there you have 2 kidneys, so you have 2 adrenal glands, and you'll see the yellow arrows pointing to the top of your kidneys. That little triangular in red, that is those are your adrenal glands. Okay. Now your glands, they release hormones. Okay. And well, first of all, they've got 2 parts. They've got an inside part and they've got an outside part. The cortex and the medulla. Medulla basically means middle. So the cortex basically is the outside, and in cases the middle. The cortex secretes steroid hormones. Steroid hormones are lipid based, so that they do cross over cellular boundaries. Small amounts of sex hormones are also generated in your adrenals, so you're going to get some estrogens and some testosterones. One of the things that's really interesting about this for women in particular is as you go into menopause, this is where most of your testosterone is going to be generated. So as your estrogen decreases, your testosterone isn't changing, but the relationship is changing. Okay, so therefore you're going to see more of the testosterone. If you've got low libido, generally speaking, you've got a lower testosterone level in your body. Okay, and one of the other interesting things is when we get to the testes and the ovaries and so forth, we will talk about the estrogen and testosterone interactions, and that we both, male and female, have both of these hormones in us, and they also change between one and another inside each of our bodies. So what you have an overabundance of estrogen, it will take the overabundance of estrogen and turn it into testosterone, which is really an interesting thing, and we'll get more to that in later weeks. That's an advertisement to continue following forward, of course. Now, aldosterone controls the amount of sodium and water absorption in the kidneys. So it sends a signal, which means that it controls your blood pressure. Your adrenal glands control your blood pressure, and also your cortisol and your adrenaline. All right, will affect your metabolism and stress response and control, and they're controlled by negative feedback. So as you generate cortisol, you naturally that will be read by your hypothalamus, and your hypothalamus will send a signal to get less CDH and then less ATCH, which is we'll get to it, in there. So that's just to give you an idea, a quick rundown. All right, we could talk about adrenaline or epinephrine, and the other one is cortisol or hydrocortisone. These are both stress hormones. Now, your adrenaline, it binds with receptors in the heart and heart vessels. So basically, we're talking about your heart rate, the amount of contraction and in your bloodstream, and also, as we learned, will control the amount of water and sodium, so that it does actually control the blood pressure. Okay. So you need more blood. You're going to be generating adrenaline. It's going to force your blood pressure to go up. Your cortisol binds with fat cells, and this will help generate glucose to feed your muscles. Okay, to increase the amount of strength that you have and the amount of energy that you have. At the same time, it will inhibit other parts of your body. such as your digestion, your growth hormones, and your immune system. So having too much cortisol will affect your ability to fight off disease. But at the same time, cortisol and adrenaline, they're associated with flight or fight hormone rules, and those each are associated with, okay, you're now scared, you got to go do something, you're either going to fight or you're going to run away. That's what flight and flight is. So this is all part of the survival technique of the human over the course of history and evolution. Now, the adrenal corticotropic hormone, and that's what I was trying to get to previous slides, ACTH. It's easier to say ACTH than adrenocorticotropic hormone. And we're going to learn more about that in the videos that are coming up. But basically, it circulates and it causes the release of cortisol and adrenal in the adrenal glands. So basically, if you look at the list there, the stressor occurs, the hypothalamus recognizes it in the nervous system, the eyes and so forth, sends signals, and the hypothalamus picks it up. It sends a hormone of corticotropin to the anterior pituitary gland. You know, remember that the hypothalamus is in your brain, right? And then the pituitary is in the center, and basically the pituitary sends out the most amount of signaling hormones to other glands. So that's often referred to as the controlling gland. And then it sends out this adrenocorticotropic hormone, ATH, down to the pituitary, sending this ATH down to your adrenal gland, which will then generate your cause your cortisol to increase and cause your adrenaline to increase. And then as your cortisol increases, then it sends a negative feedback and it causes less of the ATCH or less of the CRH hormones signals, so you start generating less. And where we learned before where the problems come in is when your body doesn't react to these negative indicators, or doesn't generate the hormones in to the required amounts in the first place. But this is the way it works in the normal flow. Okay. So once again, we look at it, the hypothalamus in the brain talks to the pituitary gland in the brain. The pituitary gland then generates the hormone CRH, that's the hypothalamus to the pituitary, then the ACTH out of the pituitary to the adrenal gland to cause the cortisol to be generated. And then the feedback mechanism says that once you've got too much cortisol, it starts generating less CRH, which generates less CTH, so you generate less cortisol. Now, the thing about cortisol is that we need to remember what it does, okay? And we've heard a lot of things about what it does that are negative. What we have to remember, too, is that cortisol is required for living. So it's also a positive. So too much cortisol is bad, too little cortisol is bad, to just the right amount, you know, just like in the nursery rhyme, you need to have just the right amount, okay? So we have too much cortisol, it does suppress the immune system. So when you are stressed, you are more likely to get sick. Does that make sense? Everybody understand that the relationship between cortisol and the immune system is that if you get stressed, right, especially stress for long periods of time, your susceptibility to disease is increased. So therefore, it's likely to get you're likely to get sick. And how many of us have experienced that in our own lives? I know that I have, especially as you're going through preparation for exams or your preparation for any kind of thing where your stress level is up, and as soon as your stress level is broken, the next thing you know is that you've got a sick day or a sick week, depending upon the severity of your illness. All right. The other thing is in the serotonin, you're going to get a decrease in serotonin, and in serotonin, that you feel good. So you're not going to feel so good. You're not going to have the energy. You're also not going to be sleeping as well if you have stress. Okay. It's also going to decrease your sensitivity to pain, because if you are in flight and fight, you need to be able to fight no matter how much injury you have. So therefore, your body's going to decrease your sensitivity to pain. All right. Your blood pressure is going to go up. And too much cortisol in your body creates a high blood pressure problem. And that then helps deteriorate your blood vessels and stresses out your heart. So that increases your likelihood of heart disease. All right. The other part about it is if you've got cortisol, you're going to have more short-term memory and your attention span. So you're going to be focused. So as your stress goes up, you become more focused. Most of the time it's focus. All right. I got to get this done right now. And therefore your brain is going to be more attention focused on that fact. Right, on the adrenaline side of the house, you're going to be generating adrenaline. It interacts with your heart, so it accelerates your heart rate and increases the force of your contractions. So your heart's going to be beating faster, and it's also going to be beating harder. Okay, at the same time, your blood vessels are going to constrict. So your blood pressure is going to go up. You're going to have more circulation. The flow, the speed of the blood through your veins and your arteries is going to increase. Okay, it's going to increase your breathing. Your lungs are going to contract and expand faster. All right, and they're also going to open up a bit more. They're going to bring in more oxygen, because you need to be feeding more oxygen to that more blood, so that you can have the oxygen to the brain for focusing, the oxygen to the muscles for more strength. Okay, it's going to reduce your digestion and increase your the sugars in your blood, so that you're getting more energy to your mitochondria. Your mitochondria got more food going to it, as in the way of sugar, the glucose, and therefore you're going to have more energy. Now remember that you're storing glucose in your liver just for this purpose. Okay, you've been storing sugars in your liver now, and now you're going to have that. So if you don't have the stressors, you don't have the exercise, you don't have this, you're not going to get that flow in and out of the liver of your glucose, and therefore you're going to put stress on the liver. So having things that do stress you is an important component of life. As I like to go in, there is a joy to stress, and the interesting thing about it is you have to enjoy your stress. So you have to learn to love being excited, learn to love being involved, and also being involved and so externally stressed. You don't want lengthy stress, because that's bad for you. You want intermediate stresses in your life. And usually you can create that for yourself, like I do by motorcycle riding. I really do enjoy it. It adds a lot of fun to my life and excitement, and therefore my my in and out of my sugars out of my liver, the amount of energy that I feel, the excitement, I can focus. These are all important components of things that you do for yourself to keep your body healthy, that keeps the flow of your cortisol and your adrenaline in sync, right? And it keeps your body synchronized to its hormonal response. Okay, next slide. All right, so in addition to this, okay, it also you're going to be generating DHEA, which is a hormone that is your growth hormone, and it's going to break down into testosterone, and you're going to get two different types of testosterone in your body. And as a older person, you want to reduce the amount of DHT. Now that's dihydrous testosterone. When you're in your growth spurts, right, and younger, that is a very good hormone to have. But as you get older, it starts tearing down your body. And so a couple of things for you women is that DHT is not good for you. Generally, you see this in the standpoint of loss of hair. Okay, male pattern baldness, the start of the ability, you see hair coming out, and most people don't like to have that because it's destructive to your self-image, and therefore you need to be careful about your DHT. So for men, it's the same thing, male pattern baldness, but also the prostate is stressed by the DHT, which then creates a problem for enlarged prostates. BPH levels go up, and therefore your susceptibility to cancer of the prostate goes up. For all of you USANA users, I'm talking to you guys, all right, is that you need your saw palmetto or your palmetto plus product. Both men and women need to take saw palmetto. I can't say this enough, I just want to make sure that you're getting to this point is that you need to get the DHT out of your system. And the way to do that is with saw palmetto. Saw palmetto gathers it up and takes it out of the system and helps you stay with the good free testosterone. Now, the free testosterone that's flowing in your body is for increases, strength and libido and energy. Okay. So it also helps move and convert to estrogens so that your bones stay healthy. And as you go into menopause now, you're going to need that testosterone in order for your body to convert it to estrogen, and therefore you'll have higher levels of estrogen. You'll have better feelings. You'll have more calm. You'll have less effects from menopause if that happens. Okay. Okay, so that's pretty much what I just related to there: the male pattern baldness, the risk of the BPH going up, the prostate problems, and then also that the saw palmetto helps get the DHT out of the body. The adrenal glands also deal with DHT in terms of what's covered from testosterone and the enzyme. And so for women, these are some of the things that would increase your DHT levels in your body. So getting and keeping these particularly diseases out of the control, and then having the saw palmetto to help you get the DHT out of your system. So I am going to hit on that again because many people think that estrogen is a female hormone and testosterone is a male hormone. I'm telling you, you need both, and both are good and bad. Okay, so both men have estrogen and testosterone, and women have both estrogen and testosterone. The levels happen to be inverted, which creates the characteristics. However, as we age, our bodies generate less testosterone in the men, so your estrogen levels going up. So you need that ability to cross over, and then the opposite is true for women. And then in women, I want you to be very careful about your levels of DHT. Of course, in your men, you need to be careful about your DHT. So that product, saw palmetto, is the product that is recommended for keeping your DHT under control. Wow. We showed this early on, and in this conversation of how the hormones relate, this comes really to the forefront in regards to the metaphysical component of the conversion of hormones from one hormone into another hormone. And It starts with your cholesterol over here, all the way to the left, and into your aldosterone, your cortisol, and your estradiol, estrogen, and estradiol. Okay, on the at the lower right. So Mila, here we are at the movies, and if you could control, can you control the movies for me, please?
Sure. Let's see here. Then I will
Right.
share my. Are you?
Yeah.
Share my.
Well, what I want to do is, before we do that, is to explain what these are. Now, Mila, there's two blues under glands and basics. I want to show both of those and then go to the hormones and then talk about fatigue and insufficiency. The movies down below, those are for you and your reference. So as you get these briefings back in, you can go to those and watch them. There's a whole lot more. I will tell you about the adrenals and the various different kinds of things that are in there. We're just going to touch upon it. And Thecla, for your friend, we're going to see into the basics under that 12-minute one. We're going to hit upon that. And then what I would recommend is going to YouTube or into the internet and pulling down specifics about that particular disease or condition. Okay, next, go to, you got it, Neela.
Okay, do you want to let me sharing?
I need to stop sharing.
No, it's okay. I think you don't need to stop sharing.
I think I might have to. I don't know. Oh, you got it.
Dr. Berg here. In this video, I want to talk about the adrenal glands. Now, I have a lot of different videos on different aspects of the adrenal, but I don't think I have a video just on the basics of what the adrenal glands do. Now, there are two glands right on top of the kidney, right down in here, and they are stress glands. So the body will respond to physical and mental stress with the help of the adrenal glands. So the adrenal glands basically adapt the different parts of your body to a stress so it can cope. For example, if you're being chased by a tiger, the adrenal gland will produce hormones to activate more blood flow to the muscle, increase heart rate, increase blood pressure, mental acuity. So you're all set to prepare yourself for flight, run away, or fight, okay? So the adrenal gland is very unique because it has an outside and an inside. The outside is all gland tissue. The inside is not gland tissue, it's nerve tissue. It's interesting. So you have this gland wrapped around a nerve bundle, and the nerve bundle makes neurotransmitters. And probably because of its location, it can have quick access to the heart and different organs because it's right in the center of the body. But it makes adrenaline, noradrenaline, which is a pre-adrenaline hormone. It also makes catecholamines, which are things like dopamine, serotonin, GABA. All the different neurotransmitters are made there. And it's part of the sympathetic nervous system, which again is the flight or fight mechanism. It's right inside the adrenal. Now the outside has primarily three categories of hormones, maybe four if you want to classify them a little differently. The first one is called glucocorticoids, which is basically cortisol. And by the way, all these hormones are steroids that are made from cholesterol. That's why you need a certain amount of cholesterol to make them, especially under stress. But the glucocorticoids, the name gives it away, glucose. Okay, they're hormones that do influence blood sugars. Okay, so that's why if you have too much of that hormone, you can end up becoming a diabetic because it produces, it turns basically things into sugar pretty quickly, your own muscle. So it makes quick energy. So if it has too much, it's going to trigger insulin and you're going to get all sorts of issues. This is the one that I talk about producing belly fat, but really only through insulin because it increases insulin. So insulin is the main hormone that does it, but it's cortisol that can trigger it. So cortisol affects stress, blood sugars, immune suppression. Now think about all the autoimmune diseases out there. where your body attacks its own tissue. And then what's the treatment for all of them? Steroids, prednisone. What's a steroid? An adrenal hormone, cortisol. So your own body is supposed to produce hormones to counter that and suppress stress. In fact, if you look at the remedy, prednisone, and what conditions it treats, all sorts of skin problems, pain syndromes, inflammatory conditions, immune conditions, organ rejection type hormone. So everything with immune suppression. So it affects the immune system big time. If the adrenal glands are weakened, it makes you susceptible to viruses. So it's really an important hormone. It actually affects bone. So if you have too much of this hormone, you can have bone loss. Controls vitamin D levels, so you could be low in vitamin D from the adrenal being stressed out. So it does a lot. Okay, so the next one is mineral corticoids. That would be a hormone that controls the electrolytes, potassium, calcium, magnesium, chlorides, sodium. So it really controls the electrolytes and the sodium fluid balance in the body. And that's one of the reasons why people might get high blood pressure. They give you a diuretic because you have a sodium imbalance. It's affecting this hormone right here. The name of it is called aldosterone. Okay, then we have androgens, which is male hormones. Females have androgens, men have more, but the adrenal gland also produces androgens. It also produces estrogen. Interesting. So when a female goes through menopause, the adrenal gland literally has to work a little harder to back up the loss of the ovarian function. And that's where it comes from, that adrenal. Also, then you have DHEA, which is kind of a precursor hormone that turns into these other hormones. So if you're low in DHEA, which most people are as they age, you lose your vitality, you lose your energy, your ability to sleep. But it's really the adrenal gland. So what do people do? They live on stimulants. They start to try to live on coffee and things to wake them up, 5-hour energy drinks to try to wake them up. The problem is the stimulants kind of stimulate the adrenal, keep it going, but then it kind of burns out over more and you become adrenal fatigued and you're tired and now you can't sleep. And the last thing is make sure when you eat, you have enough potassium in the food, because potassium is a calming mineral. It relaxes the adrenal. And when you're deficient in potassium, everything kind of speeds right up. All right, thanks for watching.
Great. So that was a lot of information in a very short period of time. I love this Dr. Blair, and we'll see more of him. We've seen him before, but we'll see more of him in the future. Now that go to the short.
Well, welcome to another MedCram video. We're going to talk about the adrenal cortex today. And the first thing we've got to learn about is the anatomy. Adrenal cortex is part of the adrenal gland, which sits right on top of the kidney. And you've got 2 kidneys, one on each side of your body. And right above the kidney is this little triangular shaped organ called the adrenal gland. And it's got 2 areas. It's got a medulla, which is in the middle, and it's got a cortex. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is this cortex, this outer portion of the adrenal gland. So let's zoom in a little bit on that and talk about it. Okay, so the adrenal cortex is a big triangle, if you will. And we're just going to sort of ignore the middle portion, which is the medulla. The adrenal cortex is divided into 3 layers. There's the outer layer, okay? And then there's an inner layer. And the part that gets left over is the middle layer. So there's 3 layers, basically. And those 3 layers, of course, has a name. And the first layer, or the outermost layer, is known as the zona glomerulosa. The middle layer is the zona fasciculata. And the last layer is the zona reticularis. So from outer to inner, it's G, F, R. It's a nice way to remember it. Zona glomerulosa, zona fasciculata, zona reticularis. We'll talk about each of these three layers. The other thing that I want you to know is the type of hormones, which is what the adrenal cortex secretes, what type of hormones they secrete. They secrete steroid hormones. And that's important to know that, because there are some hormones that are proteins, they're peptides. So why is it important to know that this secretes steroid hormones? If you take a look at the structure of the type of hormone that it secretes, they're all derived from cholesterol. And the reason why that's important is because these hormones are lipid soluble because they're a steroid. Now, because of that, they're able to go in through the cell into the cell's nucleus. Now, why is that important? It's because these hormones affect transcription of proteins in the nucleus, and that causes proteins to be made that can then be exported. Now, why that's important is because normally when you have hormones that are proteins, those proteins that are secreted into the blood will hit a receptor on the surface of the cell, which will cause something to happen almost immediately. So protein hormones cause changes to happen very quickly, whereas steroid hormones, which is what we're going to talk about here, cause changes that will happen slowly, more slowly, maybe over days or even longer, because these hormones actually go into your cell's nucleus. They cause transcription of different proteins, which takes a long time. As you recall, you have to have transcription, then it goes to the rough endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus, and then gets exported. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. So if you remember our three layers, we'll just call them here the zona glomerulosa, the zona reticularis, zona fasciculata, and the zona reticularis. Now, if you're actually to look at this linearly, take a slice of the adrenal cortex, you would see that the bulk of the adrenal cortex is actually made up of the zona fasciculata, about 10% up here, and the other 10% down here, okay? So the fasciculata makes up the major portion. So what are the major hormones that are coming out of this? The major hormone out of the zona glomerularis, or sorry, the zona glomerulosa, is aldosterone. We'll talk about that. The major hormone out of the zona fasciculata is cortisol. And the major hormone coming out of the zona reticularis are androgens. The biggest one is testosterone. Okay, so aldosterone is what's known as a mineral corticoid, and cortisol is what's known as a glucocorticoid. So there you have it. So the zona glomerulosa makes mineral corticoids, specifically aldosterone. The zona fasciculata makes glucocorticoids, mainly cortisol. And the zona reticularis makes androgens, primarily testosterone. The way I like to look at, and this kind of brings up a nice point here with problems with these, and we'll talk pathology in a little bit, but let me sort of talk about what these do. So what does aldosterone do? Aldosterone works primarily at the distal convoluted tubule. Okay, so it's right there. And what does it do there? It causes reabsorption of sodium and dumping of potassium and protons. That's what it does. What does glucocorticoids do, or cortisol? Cortisol basically is a hormone that signals to the body that we need to increase glucose. Without cortisol, you would be dead, basically. You need to have cortisol. It just sort of makes the whole body run smoothly. One of the primary functions is to increase glucose in the body. And it can do that through gluconeogenesis or glycogenolysis, okay? Androgens, what do androgens do? Basically, it's the male secondary characteristics. It's also responsible for sex drive in women. This is, in fact, women's only source of androgens is from the adrenal cortex. So knowing these things, knowing these functions, and remember, these are steroids, so they're going to go into the cells. So how would aldosterone work? Aldosterone would be secreted from the zona glomerulosa. It would then go over to the distal convoluted tube cells. It would go into their nuclei and tell the nuclei to make little sodium potassium pumps that would then be exported to the surface. Again, these are steroid hormones. So what's telling this organ to do all of this? Well, the major one is what's stimulating the zona glomerulosa to make aldosterone? It's potassium, high potassium. So high potassium tells the zona glomerulosa to make aldosterone, and that's what happens. What's stimulating this? A substance called ACTH. ACTH is a peptide or a amino acid protein hormone that is secreted from the pituitary. Okay. There's also a little fragment that is made as well that has, as part of it, and this will become important later, something called melanocyte stimulating hormone. We'll talk about that in a little bit. That's nothing you really need to know too much about at this point. What stimulates this? Again, ACTH. Okay. And there's a negative feedback inhibition. So ACTH stimulates the fasciculata, and ACTH also stimulates the reticularis to make androgens and cortisol. If for some reason this is not doing its job, you're going to get more ACTH. Why is that? Because cortisol is going to backfeed on ACTH to reduce it, and androgens the same way on ACTH. Obviously, if aldosterone is causing the potassium levels to go too low, it's going to also negatively feedback on it. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. Okay, so let's just review again. We've got the adrenal cortex. Okay. It's made of 3 layers, and we know what they are from the outside in. It's G, F, R. We know it stimulates the outer layer. The thing that stimulates the outer layer is potassium. Okay, and what does the outer layer make? It makes aldosterone, which works at the distal convoluted tubule of the nephron. The inner layer, the fasciculata, is stimulated by ACTH, and that middle layer, that fasciculata, is going to make cortisol. And the inner layer is also stimulated by ACTH, and it makes testosterone. Okay. Now, if there's a problem, let's say that we could have a problem here with the adrenal gland. Let's say the adrenal gland's not working. What would it look like? Say none of the layers are working. Since there's no aldosterone, we can't dump potassium. So you would see that potassium. By the way, this is called Addison's disease. So in Addison's disease, this is where you have no adrenal glands working. You would see what? You would see an increase in potassium because aldosterone's not working. What else does aldosterone do? It causes dumping of protons. So you would have a metabolic acidosis, okay? Because you're going to not be able to dump that. And you're also not going to be able to reabsorb sodium. So your sodium would be low. What else would you see? Your cortisol level is not going to be working. So you're going to see decrease glucose, especially in stressful situations where you need glucose to do flight and fight. You're not going to have it. And then finally, lack of testosterone, which really doesn't cause that much of a problem, at least acutely. So what are you going to see in Addison's disease? Hyperkalemia, metabolic acidosis, hyponatremia, and hypoglycemia. And you also see, because of that low sodium, you're going to have low blood pressure. That's the big problem. Let's go to the other side. What happens if you have too much of this going on? Well, you could have that from something called Cushing's. Now, it's called Cushing's syndrome there's Cushing's disease and there's Cushing's syndrome. What's the difference between the two? Well, Cushing's syndrome would be from any cause. Cushing's disease would be if there's too much ACTH from the pituitary. So disease is if there's too much ACTH. Syndrome would be just too much steroids. Maybe you're getting it exogenously, like someone's giving you a cortisol or prednisone. So what do you get to see there based on this? You're getting a lot of aldosterone. So you could see a low potassium. You could see a low proton. That would be a metabolic alkalosis. And you would also see an increased sodium, which would mean increase in your blood pressure. What about cortisol? You have a lot of cortisol, so you'd also get hyperglycemia as well. And you also get a lot of testosterone, so you get secondary male sexual characteristics as well. Okay, so this is the highs and the lows of it. If also because of that, if you had a lot of this stuff functioning, guess what your ACTH would be? It should be low if you're not dealing with a Cushing's disease, if you're dealing with the Cushing syndrome. But if in fact the pituitary is over secreting ACTH, then that would cause everything to be working overtime, and that would give you these syndromes that I was talking about before. All right, so join me for part 2 of our MedCram lecture on the adrenal cortex.
You're unmuted. David, you're unmuted.
Okay, so Thecla, when we were talking early on, when we first started the presentation, you mentioned you had a friend with Addison or just been diagnosed with Addison's. Hopefully this gives you enough information now to go back and say, okay, well, this is the kinds of things that you could be expecting. And then, you know, with the Addison's, you had a had the high potassium. So one of the things you have to do is look at the nutritional products, and you wouldn't want to add potassium to a person who has got Addison's. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's go on to the hormones of the adrenal glands. That'll be the next presentation.
Here we go.
In this endocrinology video, we'll talk about the hypothalamic pituitary axis of the adrenal corticotropic hormones. So the hormones of the adrenal cortex, actually. The brain consists of structures that are very important in regulating the hormones in our body. The hypothalamus is actually the main regulator. The pituitary gland, which sits below the hypothalamus, is made up of the anterior and posterior lobes. And these are also important endocrine glands. But here we will mainly focus on the anterior pituitary gland. We're only going to talk about the anterior pituitary because we're talking about the adrenal gland and its hormones. So the adrenal glands sit above our kidneys, and we have 2 kidneys, and so we have 2 adrenal glands. Here is a cross-section of an adrenal gland. It is made up of an adrenal medulla in the center and the adrenal cortex on the outside or periphery. The adrenal cortex and adrenal medulla produces very different hormones, but in a way they are similar. Unlike the adrenal cortex, the adrenal medulla is stimulated by nerves. The brain sends signals down the spinal cord, and the nerves which are leaving the spinal cord are sympathetic nerves that will target the adrenal medulla to secrete adrenaline and noradrenaline, or epinephrine and norepinephrine. An increase in noradrenaline or adrenaline in our blood essentially will trigger the fight or flight response, and so it will increase the sympathetic activity. And this is what we will see when there is an acute stress, when we are nervous, when we are running away in fear, or get a sudden jolt of horror. But what about the adrenal cortex? Well, the adrenal cortex is responsible for long-term stress response, you can say. The adrenal cortex has actually three main layers, which can be remembered from the top as GFR, such as the GFR of the kidneys. So the very outer layer is the zona glomerulosa. F is for zona fasciculata, and R is for zona reticularis. Again, the adrenal medulla produces hormones for acute stress. However, in the long-term stress response, the adrenal cortex has a bigger role. Long-term stresses will actually just essentially cause the hypothalamus in the brain to release corticotropin releasing hormone, which then will target cells in the anterior pituitary gland to release another hormone called adrenal corticotropic hormone, or ACTH for short. ACTH will enter circulation of the blood and target cells within the adrenal gland, specifically the adrenal cortex. It will stimulate the cells within the glomerulosa, zona glomerulosa, to release mineral corticoids, mainly aldosterone. ACTH will stimulate cells in the zona fasciculata to release glucocorticoids, mainly cortisol. ACTH will stimulate cells in the zona reticularis to release androgens. Out of these three hormones, the glucocorticoids has the very important role in providing a negative feedback to the brain. What I mean by negative feedback is that if there is an increase in glucocorticoids in circulation, this will send a negative feedback signal to the hypothalamus, telling it to reduce the production of corticotropic releasing hormone, and thus reducing the whole cascade from there. All right, let us focus on each of these three adrenal cortex hormones and see what they do, beginning with mineral corticoids. To understand mineral corticoids, we need to know about the kidneys and their functional units called the nephrons. So the nephrons are the functional units of the kidneys. There are millions of these. And these guys are responsible for filtering, reabsorbing, and secreting things from our body, and thus also has a major role in controlling our blood pressure. So kidneys, the nephrons, have a big role in controlling blood pressure. When there is a decrease in blood pressure, the kidneys will reabsorb water and sodium back into the blood, and either reabsorb or secrete potassium in exchange. The increase in water and sodium in the blood will then increase blood pressure back to normal. Aldosterone secreted by the zona glomerulosa of the adrenal cortex will actually stimulate this process, thereby increasing blood pressure. Aldosterone primarily works at the distal part of the nephron, known as the distal convoluted tubule and the collecting duct. So aldosterone stimulates water and sodium retention, thereby increasing blood pressure. It also actually tells potassium to be secreted out, thus can lead to hypokalemia. Anyway, let's talk about glucocorticoids. Glucocorticoids, primarily cortisol, is secreted by the zona fasciculata and has many functions. We mentioned it has a responsibility for negative feedback to the brain, telling the brain to reduce the secretion of ACTH. Glucocorticoids have other functions, such as causing hyperglycemia. It does this by stimulating the liver or telling the liver to make more glycogen stores, which will eventually fill up. It tells the liver to make more glucose, gluconeogenesis, tells the liver to increase protein breakdown, and actually induces insulin resistance, as well as increasing fat deposition. All this will either result in too much glucose in the liver, which will eventually be shunted into circulation, or because of the insulin resistance, this will cause the inability of glucose to be taken up by cells, thus leading to hyperglycemia. Glucocorticoids also increase blood pressure and suppresses the immune system. It suppresses the immune system, which helps decrease pain sensation, but at the same time, it will increase the risk of infection. And this is because their immune cells are being suppressed and thus are unable to defend our body. Finally, glucocorticoids also stimulate osteoclastic activity in the bone, leading to osteopenia and increasing the risk of osteoporosis, thus increasing the risk of bone fractures. The final hormone secreted by the adrenal cortex comes from the zona reticula, which is the area of the adrenal cortex which release androgens. It's important to know that unlike aldosterone and glucocorticoids, androgens have minimal role in stress. Androgens actually promote prostate growth in men and help with the development of masculine characteristics, such as a deep voice and hair growth. In females, androgens, adrenal androgens, are important in libido, and thus a decrease in androgen production will result in a decrease in libido, decrease in sexual drive in females. Those were the general effects and functions of the three hormones produced by the adrenal cortex in response to long-term stress, amongst many other things. It is important to learn about another factor which actually affects the release of aldosterone, not really related to stress. This other factor is a molecule called Angiotensin II, which is part of the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system. To understand this topic, we need to go back to the nephron, the functional units of the kidneys. As mentioned, the nephron filters things from our blood. The afferent arteriole are the vessels that enter the head of the nephron for filtration, and the efferent will leave the head of the nephron. The things filtered will go through the nephron tubes and essentially come out as urine. Now, when there is low blood pressure, it will decrease the filtration rate, and it will also decrease the pressure in the afferent arteriole coming into the head of the nephron. This decrease in pressure essentially will stimulate the release of renin from the juxtaglomerular cells. And renin will essentially start the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system cascade, which eventually the final outcome will be activation of the final product called angiotensin II. Angiotensin II will stimulate zona glomerulosa to secrete aldosterone in the attempt to increase blood pressure by targeting the nephron. To remember, the aldosterone will target the nephron to retain and reabsorb sodium and thus water into the vasculature, leading to an increase in blood pressure.
Video may play the next one.
There we go. And a good summary there on the hormones and the various different glands that are in there. Obviously, to take that all in a very short period of time, it's almost impossible. But to remember the complexity of how things work and what might be involved in people who have high blood pressure, people with low blood pressure, people who have various different anxiety issues associated with their lifestyles, and the need to moderate stress, and then of course enjoy it when you do have it, and then to understand the impacts of changes in life that occur in all of us as we age, and try to stay balanced in our hormones as we go forward. All right, Mila, the last presentation, please. And this presentation has to deal with adrenal fatigue. And this is something that you probably either have experienced yourself or know people who are experiencing it. And hello, Mike. Thanks for joining us.
Today we're going to talk about the thymus gland in relationship to stress. Now, what is this thymus gland? Well, it's part of the immune system, and you have a lot of different immune glands. You have the spleen, you have certain immune cells in your bone marrow. There's part of the immune system in all your lymph nodes around the body. In your liver.
This is
So
from
the
last
thymus
week.
being
Obviously, we lost track of the presentation, and let's see if I can't call it up here.
Okay, so this is a link from last week.
Yeah, that one's. All right, let's try. Go to that adrenal gland disorders one, the 1 minute 35 one.
Okay.
The adrenal glands are small glands located on top of each kidney. They produce hormones that you can't live without, including sex hormones and cortisol. Cortisol helps you respond to stress and has many other important functions. With adrenal gland disorders, your glands make too much or not enough hormones. In Cushing's syndrome, there's too much cortisol, while with Addison's disease, there is too little. Some people are born unable to make enough cortisol. Causes of adrenal gland disorders include genetic mutations, tumors including pheochromocytomas, infections, a problem in another gland, such as the pituitary, which helps to regulate the adrenal gland, and certain medicines. Treatment depends on which problem you have. Surgery or medicines can treat many adrenal gland disorders.
Okay, so I'll just go through the idea of adrenal fatigue for you is that it's something that medicine can't detect, but they know that it's there. And when we get into this, there's the insufficiency of generating hormones out of the adrenal gland because the adrenal gland gets too stressed out and it gets too tired and it can't generate enough. If that becomes chronic and it's detectable, it's called adrenal insufficiency. But if it's not, if people have symptoms, but they can't read it in the through tests, it's called adrenal fatigue. It's not a matter of whether you have it or you don't have it. It's just that doctors don't know how to test for it. But basically, it's a symptomatic issue, and it has to do with being tired, inability to react to stress in a reasonable way, that is a controlled manner, and then also in regards to inability to sleep, inability to eat, your blood pressure's out of whack, and all of these various different things. And yet there's no discernible medical condition that can be tested and verified. And the interesting thing about this is that so many people have some level of condition that fits into this adrenal fatigue, and it's just a matter of stress control. Okay. Now, I like to say that for all those people out there that are trying to eliminate stress, please don't do that. Please do not eliminate stress, because the only time you have no stress is when you're dead. Okay. You need stress in order for your body to function. So therefore, you have to have stressors on your body and in your mind in order for your body to function properly. So you know, to all the people who are trying to achieve some level of nirvana, nirvana is death, by the way. It's achieved only after your spirit leaves your body. So don't do that, okay? Stay with us longer and enjoy life. And then when it's your time, then you can go and be happy about it, all right? But in the meantime, keep your stress, but keep it at a reasonable level. And that was the interesting thing, the lesson to be learned here is that there are all kinds of techniques for controlling and mitigating and moderating stress. And we have a lot of those products available to us in our USANA toolbox. And we can talk about those products after we get through the presentation. But the fact of the matter is that we do have ways to moderate stress in our bodies and not allow it to control us or to diminish our abilities to function as humans. All right, so let's get back to the slides, Mila. We'll go on to the next slide. And these are summary slides so that we get to a better understanding and to rehash things. Is that we talked about our hormones, and what I want to do is to say that a good balanced diet full of nutrition, appropriate nutrition, is going to be your best tool for maintaining balanced hormones in your body and the right amount of energy and strength that's appropriate for you. Next slide. All right, so why are we spending time on hormones in the endocrine system? Well, because we're following this track of nutrition and relationships. And that is that your hormones affect your mood affects your feelings affect your behaviors, and your behaviors affect your relationships. And therein lies why we've gone through this process. We've got the pancreas, and then we're going to get into the testes and the ovaries, and then we will be back into relationships, intimacies, and sex. So those are the things that are coming back up when we go through this process. So having a good understanding of our hormones and our endocrine system, I think, is key to this whole relationship transition that takes place from nutrition to health to mood to feelings to behaviors to relationships. All right, and then those relationships then to the generation of intimacy and and reproduction. Following down below, there are some links that are helpful that you can call up and follow those particular links to get more information. Next slide, please. All right, our next class again is the pancreas, and we will get into the issues of the pancreas and how it relates to your hormones and your feelings and your behaviors next week. So we look forward to having you there. Let's go ahead and open up the everybody unmute, and let's chat about any questions that you might have.
Well, it's not a question, but that was very interesting. And it's really interesting to see how the body is made to go back around and problems and try to fix itself, and just amazing.
It is, isn't it? It's just a phenomenal component. I am trying to get to where I'm not sharing my screen anymore. Maybe I need to change my view. Okay, I'll go back to screen share here so I don't have to.
If you want to start live, good.
Okay, so here we are. And everything put together. I think you're right, Thecla, in all of that, to go back in. And we're just talking about these two glands at the top of the kidneys as the adrenals and how much they do. But at the same time, remembering that everything starts in the brain. And we had the hypothalamus and the pituitary. We also remember about the pineal gland also being there in the brain, and then coming back down to how they send out signals to the other glands in your bodies to generate the hormones that control the parts of your body, or send out additional hormones that touch on other glands and make them work. The relationship with the adrenal and cortisol and adrenaline and testosterone or androgens, I felt was really beneficial to the overall discussion. One is, we need to avoid the concept of cortisol being a bad thing. Okay, cortisol is not a bad thing. It is actually very important to life. And then we need to write them out, but we also need to maintain balance between in and amongst our hormones. And one of the scary things to me in all this hormonal discussion is we're only touching on common hormones and not on the minor hormones that are still also acting in our bodies. And so how important it is to maintain proper nutrition in our bodies so that all of our glands and organs and so forth are functioning properly, or to as good an optimum condition as they possibly can, because depending upon what time we start feeding our body proper nutrition depends upon our starting point in regards to improving our health. So again, for all of those people who are young, make sure you're feeding your bodies now and don't wait till you're old, right? To figure out that you should have been feeding your bodies when you were young.
So true.
This is so hard to teach, and it's so hard to convince people, oh, I'm eating a healthy diet. I only had 2 hamburgers this week and French fries and soda pops and so forth. I feel great. Okay. However, long term, you are doing damage to your body that is going to be, harder to fix. How hard is it to lose a pound of weight today versus the pound of weight when you were 20? Oh my God. Yeah. And keep it off. Okay. So it is a challenge as we get old and our bodies start start generating less and less of what we need to stay alive. And we are predestined to become to die, right? We're predestined to die, and then there's a process for doing that. And what we don't want to do is to bring it on too soon, right? What was this? People die too long and live too short, and how true is that? So I don't intend to die too long. When it's time for me to die, I've got something in mind, and that's the way I want to go. And it's not by deteriorated effects that have torn me apart over the course of the last 20 or 30 years of my life.
Yeah.
So all of that, we can have plans to live a long life. Each one of us has an opportunity to live longer but we may not have the genes or the historical, to become a 120-year-old person. But what we can do is we can live a full, healthy, and happy life for as long as we have the bodies to do it in. And so, that is a better way to go than to go like this. and then stretch it out and out and out. And then the next thing you know, you've lost limbs and you're sitting in a wheelchair, and next thing you lose your mental faculties and you're a vegetative state, and somebody has to take care of you, and then they lose their lives in the process. That was one of the greatest fears of my mother, was to become a burden on her children, and she definitely did not want to do that. I think that had a lot to do with her end of life. So the same thing with me and my children and so forth is that the last thing I want to do is to become a burden on my children, so they lose their lives. Okay. That being said, hey, Mike, are you in a position to turn your video on, or can you join in the conversation?
Sure. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you great. That's fantastic.
Okay.
Being in Washington State, and me in Thailand, and Jishung in China, and that sort of thing. It's really kind of interesting to be able to do that. So what do you think? I mean, you come in a little bit late, but you'll have the opportunity to pull it off of the presentation off of YouTube.
Yeah, it was really good, because when you talked about blood pressure and all that kind of stuff and stress, and I mean, I was looking at all the different things that were being presented, and I'm like, wow, that's like me, especially when you're talking stress and blood pressure and a few other things. And I'm like, and I've kind of gotten a lot of those things under control a little bit, but it's like, one little, especially as you get older, it's like you change one little thing, it's like, oh wow, it just jumped up 10 points, it's just and I don't know, it kind of, I feel like it gave me insight. There's some other things in there that that probably affect our family and stuff, and I'm just trying to wrap my mind around the whole thing, and it's like, well, what things can I do to fix it, other than, well, for me, more exercise, whatever, but and eating healthier and lots of vitamins, and it's just a balance.
It is a balance. And one of the things to also learn about here is that the prescription for prednisone, how often is that made? And now you know why doctors do it, because it affects so much.
Yeah, I see people doing it and injecting it in different parts of their body, and for me, it scares me. You know what I mean? And but it's like, would it, if someone were to take more vitamins to stimulate, what I'm saying, and then create natural prednisone in your body, why inject it? You know what I'm saying? But
yeah, so it's like ringing a bell, right? You're gonna hit it with a hammer, and it's gonna ring, and it's gonna reverberate a lot, and a lot of things are going to be affected by it, and not necessarily the only things you want it to affect.
It'll affect your other hormones, and your other parts of your glands are turning them off because it's producing too much.
Yeah, the complexity of the human body, and then being able to say, okay, well, here's a drug to fix this. Well, it's fixing what it was designed to fix, but it has all of these other effects on the rest of your system. So if it's a short-term thing to take care of a infection, that's one thing. But when you're talking about stuff that's going to affect the whole of your life, I mean, you get into these degenerative diseases, and some of the things that they prescribe for these all kinds of steroids and so forth, and you're going, holy mackerel, how? Yeah, very scary.
Yeah, it'll do a reverse thing in your body, and it's like it'll overproduce other things and throw other things out of balance. Your presentation really gave me a lot of insight. I was just like, wow, it's just like, so thank you.
Oh, you're quite welcome, Mike. And for everybody, again, we are on for Pancreas next week. I hope that you all can join us and participate. And then don't forget to pull down these videos as you need them. They're available on YouTube. It also helps us if you like them and subscribe, and also forward them, because we get more recognition and are able to affect more people, because of the fact when we get more people, we get more likes and more subscriptions, then when people search for stuff, our stuff comes up, and then we're able to reach out. And if the only thing that they see about USANA is the stuff that I've got in my background, then that is better than not being told at all. And that will open the doors to so many things. So again, Thecla, I really appreciated you sharing early on about your contacts and mine. I've had several here this week, all of them all positive, but you know, in terms of conversations about health, well-being, and the business of health and well-being, and the relative difference between the different products that are out there. Obviously, you can see over here on my this book right here, I use this an awful lot. And if you do not have a personal copy, please go and order it. It's only $12-ish on the from USANA. You can get it in the business development.
$19.99.
How much?
$19.99.
$20.99.
$19.99.
Oh, $19.99 now. Okay.
Unless, of course, they get down to the last one, and then it was $99.99.
Well, if you're auctioning them off, yeah.
No, that was on Amazon.
Yeah, it was on
I
Amazon.
figured
That
out.
is an auction, though. That's like you're down to the last copy. Okay, but basically, this we should be seeing a 7th edition pretty soon on this. So maybe this summer we will see that. We have the convention coming up. Please save your monies to be able to attend a convention in person in Salt Lake City, because convention is going to be a in-person event this year after 2 years of being virtual. And it will be great because, amongst other things, we are due a bunch of new product introductions in the biome arena. And then also it's the 30th anniversary of USANA. And if you were around for the 20th anniversary, USANA really pulled a lot of out. And then the 25th was really great. You know, they give a lot of gifts and so forth. As a matter of fact, Mila, one time they, what was it, the 25th, they gave the iPads out. Everybody got an iPad that attended the convention. So who knows what great things the company is going to do for its 30th. They do, but we don't yet. The other part about it is that they have had record profits, so therefore they will be sharing those with new benefits and so forth, and the like. And we will still see some more great things out of our company, and we're really looking forward to that. Personally, I'm looking forward to the rollout of the new products here in Thailand. Mila, I understand that we're going to get Active Nutrition on the 22nd of January. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, super. And then Thecla, we're still going to be missing stuff, so I'll send you a list of money, and then if you can get that and then re-forward it to us, and then okay, I would really appreciate that. And who else has got something to add to our conversation today before we sign off? Okay. Well, that being said, I love you all, and thank you for being here. And we will see you next week on the Pancreas. Happy hormones, everybody.
Happy hormones.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Happy hormones.
Happy hormones.
That's what we want. Happy hormones.